Welcome, I'm Jon Caldara, president of the Independence Institute and your devil's advocate. Yeah, that's the word. A little later on, energy policy. Can we actually go 100% renewable, and what is it going to cost you here in Colorado? But first, there's political correctness, but it's also on the right. From the Cato Institute, Alex, I'm going to slaughter this name.
Nowrasteh.
Nowrasteh. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can't spell that, but that's fine.
Yeah, my ancestors couldn't either.
Yeah, that's a good point. Hey, let me ask you about this. You did a piece in the Washington Post, and I rip on the political correctness of the left constantly because it's so annoying and it's so sanctimonious. I also believe it's one of the key reasons why Donald Trump won, is his willingness to just lean right into it and blow it up. You have an interesting thought. The right has its own special thought police as well. Tell me a little bit about this.
I think every ideology really does. I mean, there are certain words, ideas that are taboo for everybody, and the left has its own. We know about it in political correctness. On the right, though, they have it also. I call it patriotic correctness, and it's sort of a full-throated, unnuanced defense of a lot of the particular myths that a lot of right-wingers have about the United States. I mean, in particular, sort of a cherry-picked nationalist ideals about the country, about the way that things are, about history, very similar to the way the left has and how they describe the United States.
Let me give you a couple examples. So I have a handicapped son. He has Down syndrome. I'm not allowed to say I've got a Downs kid because, no, I have a child with Downs.
Right.
He's developmentally delayed. He's no longer retarded. He doesn't have normal friends. Now he has typical friends. I mean, it gets tiresome keeping up because in 5 years all that changes. But I've had callers on my radio show who said, I didn't like that guy. He didn't wear a flag lapel on his flag pin on his lapel. Or did you see Roy Moore had a crucifix, not a flag, and therefore I really couldn't trust him. Is there a code to the patriotic right that obviously I don't quite get?
It's developing, and I mean, I think you see it more with sort of Colin Kaepernick and these sort of protests over standing for the Pledge of Allegiance or the national anthem during sporting events. You see grown men who protest by burning jerseys of presumably their famous, their favorite football players on television because somebody else from that team doesn't stand for the national anthem. Now, I always stand for the national anthem during sporting events, but I find it very weird to get so infuriated when other people don't that you destroy your own property sort of in protest to that. I mean, it reminds me, they're triggered by somebody else doing something else, and they react in a way that is like a temper tantrum.
For me, that one, I don't get weepy at the national anthem. I always stand at the national anthem. For some people, it's more of a revered prayer than it is a song. I get it. But, I mean, those guys hack me off. The last thing I need is multimillionaires trying to lecture me when I want just one day off from political correctness. And so when I see them burning, I love that the NFL is losing ratings this year. I wish there's a time and place for everything. Your employers usually don't let you have protests at work.
They usually don't, and I think that's probably a good thing. But I also, it's a sporting event. It's where people come together to watch a game. I don't know why patriotic symbolism in the first place has to be a big part of it. It's a relatively recent intervention in a lot of sports. I mean, it really didn't begin until World War II when the national anthem was played in some sporting events, and then since then it's sort of creeped up more and more. I would like just one type of activity where we don't have to talk about how much.
Give me another example. I mean, sorry, you're not fine with that, but I mean that seems like a shadow battle for the Trump polarization. Is there something else that conservatives do that if you get crosswise, you're kicked out of the club?
Well, I think for instance, if there is sort of a across the board, not entirely, of course, there's always exceptions, but a big defense of, say, police who on camera behave inappropriately towards suspects. There's sort of this automatic defense for them. It's, this job is really tough. We need to defend them in the same way that left-wingers defend like really bad school teachers or unionized government employees. All Border Patrol agents or military or heroes, no matter what they do under any circumstances, we need to give them the benefit of the doubt no matter what. Whereas on the left, they do the same thing with other types of government employees that they like. So it's just sort of from different perspectives coming at the same sort of correctness.
What about patterns of speech? Because what's difficult talking to a progressive is you have to use 3 times the amount of words because they can't just get to the damn point. Because you've talked to an educrat. I mean, it just takes forever to get to the point. And that's the soft, cuddly, sticky language that National Public Radio and other progressive outlets use, and it's annoying. So from the other side, do conservatives have a speech code that you're not supposed to break out of?
Yeah, so I work mainly on the topic of immigration, and when you hear people on the left will say things like an undocumented immigrant to mean like an illegal immigrant. But if you say undocumented immigrant to a conservative audience, a lot of times they'll throw a fit and be like, no, call them an illegal immigrant, call them a illegal alien, call them an illegal invader or a border infiltrator, which Mark Krikorian of the Center for Immigration Studies insists on. So they try to change the language, in their own way. The left is guilty of it.
But can't you admit that the left has the right, just dead to rights in this one? They win the war of the vernacular. It's not racial discrimination in hiring; it's affirmative action. I mean, what conservatives do is when they hear undocumented worker, everybody on their breath goes illegal, and that's what it is a code word on the left, and so the right is a reaction. Isn't the right speech code more of a reaction?
I'm not so sure about that. I mean, if you take a look at the history of sort of the pushing of sort of nationalist symbolism into the American public domain during World War II and during the progressive era, you see it sort of pushed in by laws. You have a lot of loyalty oaths. You have a public school force standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, which now you can opt out of. I mean, I think the right has been more successful in that these symbolisms, these types of things are part of how we behave, and any deviation from that seems bad. I mean, I had to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance in class growing up, and I don't mind it. I did it. I love the United States.
I did it because the nuns would whack you if you didn't do it.
Exactly. But from the opposite perspective, so the politically correct idea, from the left-wing side, they see that as patriotic correctness winning. And it's institutionalized in a way that a lot of this left-wing stuff isn't. Now, they're trying to make it institutionalized, more so, especially in college campuses. But I think that you can make the argument that the left learned from the sort of nationalist right of 70 years ago.
Let's continue about language. You've also done a lot of work defending capitalism. Capitalism is a word that triggers some people. And it gets conflated with business all the time. And therefore, Bernieites look at libertarians and go, oh, you corporate whores. You want big, huge, faceless international conglomerates to oppress working people. Give me the definition for capitalism from your point of view, or a capitalist. When you say this is capitalism, and why is that different than pro-business?
So capitalism encompasses both the producers and the consumers. So it's the idea that people can supply goods and services to voluntary consumers who want to buy them with an absolute minimum of government interference. So the government only protects private property rights, private contracts, but lets the market entirely determine prices, lets people decide what they want to make, who they want to deal with, where they want to trade, who they want to hire, without any kind of government interference. I think this focus in the media on what capitalism is, and they focus on big businesses, only focuses on a small aspect of it, and from a bad perspective.
Capitalism is Wall Street. That's what you people are doing. You guys are puppets of Wall Street. That's why you want to protect this capitalistic system. That's why I support Bernie Sanders to knock you Wall Street tycoons down.
Well, what we are is pro-market. We believe that individuals or companies should be able to choose who they want to do business with, both as consumers and as producers. By focusing on Wall Street, you're only focusing on those people who make things, and only some of them. I mean, most businesses aren't on Wall Street. Most businesses consumers that make the things we want are local or on the state level. They're not sort of represented by these big businesses.
For me, there's also something else here, is that I don't think those of us who defend free markets do a great job calling out cronyism the way we should. And that we're willing to do it when we see it for the ridiculous green energy world, or Elon Musk you buy a Tesla, you get $6 grand from the state, you get $5 grand from the feds, your energy company kicks in 10 grand, and everybody's paying for rich white guys to buy a Tesla. We get that's wrong. But it's more than that. When you look at the banking system, when you look at who gets representation in Congress, it is large industry, and there is a lot of cronyism. And that's why corporate welfare is something I think we need to do a much better job blowing a whistle on, saying that's not capitalism. There's a difference. We want freedom. We want capitalism. This is wrong.
Absolutely, that's a huge part of it. The government is involved with all these industries intimately, so the result of this is not the result of the free market, it's a result of a lot of government meddling in it. But I think even beyond that, what we need to focus on is it's not about business, it's about the market, it's about individuals being able to choose who they want to do business with. And that's sort of consumers are an ignored aspect on both the left and frankly on the pro-capitalist right as an important part of this, an important feature.
It always amazes me that consumers, when businesses are getting ripped apart, nobody talks about the consumers. We talk about how Walmart pays terrible wages. We never seem to talk about that Walmart's there, people who couldn't afford the quality of life before because they couldn't afford to shop in a boutique store.
That's right.
Now get their clothes or a television or their pots and pans for a fraction of what they had before. Their dollar now goes a whole lot farther. Nobody wants to talk about that huge benefit.
That's the mark of prosperity. It's not the number of dollars you have in your bank account, but what you can buy with those dollars. And the fact that Walmart or another company or small businesses lowers the price for you makes you richer. So we only focus on workers, we only focus on businesses. I think that's a mistake. All of us are consumers. We all consume lots of stuff all the time. We need to focus on that.
All right, real fast. You're sitting next to a Bernieite in a bar, and you want to convince him of this. What's the bumper sticker?
Bumper sticker, boy. So I can tell you the few sentences I can give him. I said, if you think that the government is controlled by rich people now for the benefit of rich people, you don't want to give that government more power because it will only do more of the things you dislike. If you want to help people that you claim to help, get the government off their backs and take away the government's power to benefit rich white people.
Alex, thank you so much. People want to find out more, cato.org.
That's right.
Stay tuned.